We had a conference called the NERVA Conference, the Network for Undergraduate Research in Virginia. We had the conference this year at Hampton-Sydney University College. And Sirena presented about this work. And as I was telling her and Mom over dinner, halfway through the presentation, I was already thinking to myself, I gotta have her come down to CNU and talk about this. It was an amazing project, this mural in Richmond that she did, which is not only an incredible display of her art, but it also overlaps with interests in climate and issues related to climate change, which is really, really kind of intriguing. So, Sirena Pearl.
Thank you so much, David. Hi, I want to thank everyone for listening to my research and mural project on the urban heat island effect. This past summer, I created a mural on BCU's campus to illustrate this environmental risk. Before I talk about my project, I'm going to explain my current work and practice. My name is Sirena, and I'm a painting and printmaking major at BCU. My current artwork explores environmental risk communication and ways to apply creative technology with art. I also work as an assistant at the BCU Creative and Technology Workshop. The workshop allows students and faculty to use creative technology for academic projects and learning. Through my art in classes, working at the workshop, I've been able to incorporate my artwork with innovative creative technology and practices such as VR, 3D printing, projection mapping, and animating with 3D software. These past 2 years, I began to explore mixing creative technology with my painting practice. Specifically using apps such as 3D software and digital compositing apps such as Photoshop and Blender to composite my paintings. Software like Blender and Photoshop and innovative technologies such as thermal infrared photography became vital creative assets in the mural and research project I worked on over the summer. Now, before I talk about my mural, let's talk about the urban heat island effect. An urban heat island is an urban area having a disproportionate ratio of heat-absorbent infrastructure, such as asphalt and concrete, to its cooling counterparts, forest coverage, and vegetation. My favorite analogy to picture the urban heat island effect on a small scale is to think about the surfaces we walk on in the summer. If we were barefoot, I think many of us would choose to walk on the cool grass rather than the burning hot pavement surface. This is because pavement absorbs heat much faster than the glass dome. On a small scale, this analogy is what contributes to the urban heat island effect. July 2023 was reported as the hottest month in global history since 1880, according to NASA. With increasing temperatures influenced by anthropogenic climate change, the urban heat island effect is becoming more prominent of an issue than ever. Often, like many other environmental issues, redlined neighborhoods bear the worst of these effects. This is an article from the New York Times that shows the disproportionate temperatures formerly redlined neighborhoods in Richmond face during the extreme heat waves in the summer. Decades of racist housing policies have given these communities the least amount of access to temperature-cooling infrastructure and vegetation, causing these communities to bear the worst temperatures in the city. My interest in environmental risk communication motivated me to find a way to share what this invisible effect of the urban heat island looks like. I managed to create a visual format of what the urban heat island looks like with thermal infrared photography. In basic terms, thermal infrared cameras create images through detected heat. Thermal infrared cameras come with a variety of color palettes. For this project, I chose the Iron Bow color palette. The iron bow palette displays the hottest temperatures as a whitish yellow, and the coolest temperatures as a blackish purple. Here are some examples of thermal infrared images from murals from previous research studies. The image on the bottom left was a mural created by the artist Eric Scottness. He used solar reflective paints as a medium for painting murals. The images on the right are murals in Richmond. They were captured by the University of Richmond and the Richmond Science Museum. Their study used thermal infrared cameras on local murals to research how different paint shades heat or cool walls. These images are interesting because the murals did not intentionally paint with thermal techniques in mind, but we can still see a thermal contrast in the captures based on the shades of colors they used. In order to create a mural that purposely composited heat, I had to create a composition that communicated the factors associated with the heat element, but also have the ability to reflect or absorb heat in specified areas. This process took many iterations, but with the 3D compositing software Blender, I was able to create a detailed draft of what I wanted the mural to look like. My draft was not only for myself, but also my proposal. Creating a draft illustrating my design was vital for proposing a site location and requesting grant money to fund this project. I created a separate draft of an edited composite to display what I wanted the mural to look like, captured with a thermal infrared camera. This draft allowed the readers of my proposal to understand what my goal was with this research project. But it also provided a plan for which forms on the mural I wanted to intentionally cool or warm. After the proposal was accepted for the grant, the site location, I began painting the mural. The next slide displays the time-lapse of the mural creation. My project's research focused on using thermal infrared camera to measure the thermal qualities of the paint. The 3 areas I'm measuring are mark-making techniques, tonal gradations, and how different paints, such as the solar reflective coating, compare to regular mural paints in absorbing and reflecting heat. I purposely painted with these properties to create temperature contrast in the mural to visually communicate thermal differences of the 2 cities personified as figures. The 2 figures are contrasting, but their limbs interlock in a pulsing configuration representing the complex and chaotic ecological systems of humans in the environment. The red figure personifies an urban heat island. The figure is sweating and is in pain from absorbed heat. The surrounding environment of the red figure displays concrete infrastructure, asphalted roads, and no vegetation. The blue figure resembles a city modeled on sustainable foundations, with extensive forest coverage, wildlife, and infrastructure rooted on garden roofs. The blue figure's temperature is cool, and their posture is mostly at rest. However, their pulsing limbs interlock with the heat island as a metaphor that the environmental system is complex and may change over time. Here are some videos I took demonstrating the thermal difference in the figures in the binary cities. Finding the right site location was a crucial part for the research components of this project. My mentor and I wanted a site that was on campus so it'd be accessible to a large population living in an urban city. We were also looking for a wall that would be at a large enough scale for a visible temperature difference in the thermal infrared capture. Other factors included having the wall's orientation face the sun during the peak temperatures in the afternoon. We wanted a wall that had sun exposure. Trees and buildings in front of the wall would block the sun's rays and prevent heat absorption. For our site location proposal, I biked along campus and took photos of every wall that could work for this project. I then composited our mural draft onto each wall to allow the Art on Campus committee to have an idea of what the mural could look like on campus. My mentor and I proposed a curated site location to VCU's Art on Campus committee, and we had our first preference picked, the Bow Street parking deck. The Bow Street parking deck had the ideal scale for our project with the dimensions of 91 by 25 feet, which totaled to 2,275 square feet. Since the wall was located on the roof of the parking deck, it had unobstructed exposure to the sun. An unexpected, surprising coincidence that I noticed about the site location was while painting this mural on the scaffolding, I found the surrounding landscape of Richmond aligning with the design cities of the mural. I could see the forest city divide of the design align perfectly on the division of Richmond's vegetation and city health. This comparison was most apparent when we flew the drone over the parking deck right above the mural. I captured a still of the drone's footage and blew up the images of the divided landscape of Richmond City. On the left, we see vegetation, and the right shows city infrastructure. In the next few slides, I'm going to share the thermal infrared images I took of the mural. Specifically, the images displaying the temperature contrast I found using different tonal shades of paint. My main objective was to create the temperature contrast between the two central figures. My goal was to highlight the cooler thermal difference in the blue figure representing a sustainable city against its heat island counterpart. In this comparison, we can see the red figure absorbing more heat with its yellow and white palette in the thermal capture. I measured the temperature average of both figures using the FLIR Ignite line measurement tool. The capture was taken on a 95-degree day on September 6th. The tool found an average temperature difference of 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit in the sustainable city figure compared to the urban heat island figure. The images taken with the thermal infrared camera confirmed our hypothesis. The darker shades of paint absorbed a significantly greater amount of heat than the lighter shades. Again, this is shown with the black paint representing the yellows of the ivory palette, and the lighter blue windows displaying a cooler purple shade in the thermal infrared capture. While taking these thermal infrared photos, I was most excited by the amount of image clarity one could see with the temperature differences. Another interesting detail I recorded with the thermal infrared camera was the temperature difference between morning and afternoon. I took the first capture in the morning at 6:13 a.m. The sun had not come up yet, and there's little to no temperature contrast in the image of the flower. The second capture was taken at 2:16 p.m., demonstrates how much of a difference sun exposure can make in the thermal imaging of the mural. The flower is fully visible in the afternoon capture because the wall absorbed the heat from the sun exposure. This is also apparent in a time-lapse I took in January of how the heat of the mural fades from 12:50 p.m. to sunset. On the day it was taken, sunset was around 5 p.m. This time-lapse was taken on January 13th, 2024. The absorbed heat on the mural rapidly decreased during the last 10 minutes leading up to sunset, from 4:50 to 5 p.m. I plan to film another time-lapse next summer to contrast the winter's quick retention of absorbed heat on the mural surface compared to the summer's longer heat retention. Here's a few more images showing the thermal contrast apparent with the tonal values in the mural. More of these captures will be available in the link attached to the QR code at the end of this presentation. The other thermal technique I measured was painting with a clear solar reflective coating. The solar reflective coat I applied was a clear satin cool coat. Its formula contains tiny ceramic spheres, which helps the painted surface reflect the sun's rays and cool its surface temperature. Often, solar reflective paints are applied to buildings and pavement surfaces to reduce the amount of absorbed heat in urban areas. This is just one of the many solutions that can be used to reduce the urban heat island effect. Here are the before and after images of testing the solar reflective coating. The second photo on the right was taken after applying the coat to the sustainable city figure. The second photo was taken on a slightly hotter day than the first capture, which is on the left. Oh, sorry. However, despite the hotter temperature, the mural surface in the area we measured had a 7.7 degree Fahrenheit temperature drop with its solar reflective coating. A reason I created this mural was to make this type of data more visual and accessible for a wide audience. Because if we only looked at quantitative data, we'd be greatly limiting a population to spread this message to. We can also see a temperature decrease using the solar reflective coating and a thermal infrared capture of the flowers. With a 4.4 degree Fahrenheit temperature drop in its surface temperature. So what's next for this project? One of my goals for this project was to have a full thermal infrared capture of the mural. But unfortunately, due to the site location being on a roof, I can only step back a short amount of distance. With the large scale of the mural, this limited distance prevents me from capturing the mural's full view. When designing this mural, I created a light to dark gradient in the background. I did this tonal gradient with hopes of seeing a thermal gradient in the capture. Due to the scale of the mural, I would need to take a full thermal infrared capture to view this temperature gradient. I have taken pictures from below the parking deck, but due to the limited pixels of my camera and the far distance of the mural, I can't take high enough quality capture to view the full temperature difference. I have also attempted to composite multiple captures into a panoramic view of the mural. But unfortunately, due to the difference in time, compositing separate sections of the mural wouldn't be an accurate display to what the entire mural's capture will look like. To solve this issue, my next plan for this project is to hire a thermal infrared drone pilot next summer to take an entire capture of the mural. My hopes are that a thermal infrared drone camera will be able to take a capture that is high enough in resolution to display the entire composition. I want to thank everyone who's donated through our project through GoFundMe for helping make this project possible. With our donors' help, my academic mentor and Professor Roberto Jamora and I were able to rent scaffolding, purchase paints, and the solar reflective coating necessary to make this mural. I also want to thank Dr. Stephen Fong, Professor of Chemical and Life Science Engineering, who generously let us borrow his thermal and red camera for this project. I want to thank Jody Simona, Assistant Dean for VCU Arts, for her tremendous help with our project proposals on VCU's Art and Campus Committee. And a thank you to David Solomon for inviting me to present my project here at Christopher Newport University. And lastly, I want to thank Roberto Jamora. From the very beginning, my academic mentor and VCU Arts professor, Roberto Jamora, was deeply invested in the success of this project. He's helped me with my project proposal, finding a site location, raise funding, budget, and set up scaffolding for this project. I couldn't have done it without him. Thank you.